Welcome, 12-ounce sports fans. My name is Sam Mendelson, and welcome to Opportunistic Bets with Sam Mendelson. That's me. Hi, I'm Sam Mendelson. A little bit about me. I've been spending the last, 3, 4 years perfecting and working on my sports betting portfolio. I've worked for companies such as Clutch Points, Sports Betting Dime, Odd Sharks. And so I like to think that I know as much as everyone else would say out there, as that sports gambler, that they know what to pick every week. Now, my big sport that I love betting on, as you can see with the Colts banner, my Cowboys hat, my Cowboys and Colts game that I went to in Indianapolis. The Cowboys didn't put up any points, but it was still a great game. Lost a little money on that game as well. But my biggest sports portfolio is surround my betting portfolio is around football, and it's the biggest sports betting you can do. I mean, people will do basketball, and I'll definitely get into basketball in the later shows. Hockey, probably the toughest. Baseball, it's the off season. College football, not really my forte, but I'll dabble, especially when it comes close to bowl games and playoffs and stuff like that. But I want to focus in on the NFL because right now the last few weeks in the NFL have been absolutely insane. Like, put that emoji, that text emoji with the explosion coming out of your head, like the, because that how it's been. I lost my suicide pool because Cincinnati could not win on the road against the Jets, and it seems like every big Super Bowl contender has had a bad loss. Buffalo loses to Jacksonville. Dallas loses to Denver. Baltimore loses to Miami last Thursday night. My Tennessee gets blown out. Kansas City gets blown out by Tennessee. The Rams have looked awful the last 2 weeks, and it's just been crazy. But what I like to do is go through all the games, and then at the end of this show, I'm going to give you my 8 best picks. I've been doing it all week. I have a clip of 46 and 34. Now, it was a lot better. I was over 69%. So I was at 70%, I should say, about a couple weeks ago. And then the last few weeks have been bad. And last week I was really bad, 2-6. You know what? The gambler, the gods take and the gods giveth and the gods will take away again. So you got to kind of stick with me here. I'm going to help navigate you through the games. I got the picks, the spreads, I got the money lines, and I got the over-unders. Now, if people aren't familiar with the spreads, money lines, and over-unders, I'll get to that in just a second. But I'm going to go through all the games, and then I'm going to give you my 8 best picks. Now, I'm not saying to do a parlay on 8 picks. It's worked for me in the past. It doesn't work every week. What I would recommend is taking each game as a whole and betting on each game individually. Some people might just want to take a couple games. Some people might want to take 5 or might take all 8 of my picks. And you know what? Best to you. I do a little bet on the side with all my 8 picks, see what happens, and if you ride with me, I will win you some money. So let me break down quickly for people out there who aren't familiar with money line and spreads and over-unders when it comes to the NFL, and then I'll go into these week 11 games. So for spreads, it's pretty simple. There's a team that has to win. There's a favorite and an underdog. So for example, the Thursday night game, New England New England on the road in Atlanta, a rematch of that famous Super Bowl where the Falcons blew a 28-3 lead. But as Matt Ryan alluded to today in his morning press conference, there's not a lot of players remaining from that Super Bowl team that remain with the Falcons, to be honest. Dan Quinn's with the Cowboys. The most of the team, Julio Jones is in Tennessee. Todd Gurley doesn't even have a job in the NFL. I digress. I'll get into that in a moment. Spreads, New England favored by 7 means they have to win by a touchdown. A touchdown actually would push. So what I'll do is I'll kind of influence you. Well, maybe you want to buy a point here or, leave it as is. In this case with the New England Patriots, I love them at -7. Again, I'll get to that in just a moment. But that's the spread. So another example would be like San Fran this week playing at home against Jacksonville. Again, I'm wrong. San Fran on the road against Jacksonville. And Jacksonville is +6.5. San Fran -6.5, meaning that San Fran has to win by a touchdown. If they win by 6 points or less, then they don't cover and you don't win your bet. If they win by 7 points or more, then they do cover. Then you have money line. That's straight up winning. You don't get enough good odds. So unless you're really thinking on taking an underdog, let's say hypothetically Jacksonville, or you want to take Atlanta against New England, you're betting Atlanta just straight up to win. No spreads, nothing. It's just straight up win. The money, the payout is greater, but the odds of it actually happening and coming to fruition is a lot tougher. So that's money line. I'll go through those in a minute. And then Over under, you get the total amount of points. So for New England Atlanta, the total number of points is 47 and a half. So if the score is 28-21, you cover. If the score is 27-17, you don't cover. It's clear math. You just got to go the over under. I hope that gave you a little bit of information. And now let's get into the Week 11 picks. All right, so I touched upon about a moment ago. New England at Atlanta. It's a rematch of that Super Bowl a few years back where Julian Edelman made that insane catch. The Patriots were out of it. If you were betting in that game and you bet on the Patriots to come back from 28-3, that money line odd, which is what I mentioned just earlier, for them to just come back and win the game would have won you a ton of money. I didn't do that. But I'm just saying that's an idea. You can bet mid-game, you can bet during the game, which is mid-game, or you can bet before the game. So New England -7. I'm really liking New England in this position. I mean, Mac Jones has 6 wins. That is more wins combined by every rookie quarterback that has played this year. That's Justin Fields, that's Trevor Lawrence, that's Trey Lance. There is no questioning that Mac Jones has been put in the best situation possible. That defense is outstanding. They absolutely blew out the Cleveland Browns 45-7 last Sunday, and I had Cleveland +4. I said, you know what? I think Mac Jones is going to have to go into Myles Garrett, who's leading the league in sacks. I really like Cleveland's D, and they're showing that a week after trading Odell Beckham that they can do just fine without him. This is a team that went to the AFC Championship last year. Tough place playing in New England, but they're playing in a dome in Atlanta. But the Atlanta Falcons will be without Calvin Ridley, who has been out for the last few weeks due to mental health. There's no question, there's no answer if he'll be back this season. And their secret weapon, Cordarrelle Patterson, is also out. He got injured in last Sunday's game against the Dallas Cowboys, that 43-3 blowout. So I'm looking at that team, I'm saying, okay, the Cowboys, whose defense has been very good, very opportunistic. There you go. Very opportunistic in creating turnovers. We're able to create 3 turnovers, 2 off Matt Ryan, 1 off Josh Rosen, the backup quarterback. And, really, when you look at that, offensive scheme and what they're going to be able to do, Mike Davis was not the guy that they expected. I think he worked well in Carolina. I don't think he's worked well in Atlanta. And Atlanta doesn't have the best O-line. They don't have the worst. I would say they're near the middle of the pack, maybe lower, just a little under that. But they can't get any yards on the rushing game. And if you can't run the ball in New England, you can't take that. Bill Belichick is going to game plan. And, I'm looking for Kyle Pitts to have a day. And again, as I do more shows, you're going to see, I'll add in prop bets. But for the first show, I just wanted to do straight up spreads, money line, bets. So the money line right there is New England -295. So when you look at that, you can see money line, you're not getting a lot of value at New England -295. So I like New England in the game to win, and I like them to cover that 7 points. They may or may not be one of my 8 picks for later on. I'll get to that later on in the show. And then the over-under 47.5. I don't know if I love this game to be a high-scoring game. I usually look at it and say, if there's anything more than 47, into that 47, close to 50 range, that's when I start thinking, okay, do these offenses have the abilities to go out for it? I mean, if you look at that 47.5 points, I mean, New England almost did that single-handedly by themselves at home against Cleveland. I think it's going to be tough on a short week to go travel to Atlanta and put up that many points. I don't think Atlanta's going to put up any points. So I like the under in that game. But I like New England to cover the -7. If you can get them a -6.5, even better, because if they win by a touchdown, you cover, whereas a 7 would give you a push. So that's the first game of the week. That's on Thursday. That's why I like doing these shows on Wednesday, so you get in that little early action on Thursday. Then you go into the 1 o'clock games on Sunday, and let's break those down a little bit. Cleveland Browns -10 against Detroit. Now, Detroit just went to Pittsburgh and ended up in a tie. They didn't lose. So if you're a Lions fan out there, hey, you got somewhere to grow. Start from the bottom and, work your way up. Increments, right? -10. But here's the big news coming out today. Ian Rappaport reports that Jared Goff is questionable for the game. And I know the backup is David Bluff. I actually saw him live in Detroit a few years ago, pre-COVID, against the Dallas Cowboys. Threw the ball well. But I got to think that, Cleveland, even though they're not on the trajectory that we thought they were after last year, they're getting Nick Chubb back, who's the workhorse of the team. Kareem Hunt's just right around the corner, but I'm loving Nick Chubb to go off. I thought Detroit did a very good job against Pittsburgh in keeping that time of possession, running that ball. I mean, they had over 200 yards rushing. Jared Goff had less than 80 yards throwing heading into overtime. So I like what Detroit's able to do. Do I think that they're able to keep it under 10 points? I'm not sure. I think playing two tough games on the road in Pittsburgh and getting a tie. I know Dan Campbell's going to be fighting. I know he's going to try some special team stuff, but I think Cleveland has the capabilities with a guy like Nick Chubb to run it down their throats, to take the time of possession. Everyone's hating on Baker Mayfield, and it looked like a lot of Cleveland fans are kind of maybe getting tired. It seems like that whole experiment again. He's not Johnny Manziel, and he's not the 12 other quarterbacks, Brady Quinn, and all the other guys that you can name. Tyrod Taylor was in there for a little bit. I actually do like Baker Mayfield. I think he's a fighter. I know he's hurt. I know he's banged up, but he's playing through it. You look at his weapons right now, without Odell Beckham, it's Jarvis Landry, it's David Njoku, Austin Hooper, David Peoples-Jones. Not a lot of options, but I think Myles Garrett, who is leading the league in sacks, is going to have himself a day. So I'm taking Cleveland to cover the 10 points. That's just my thought. Again, I'm just giving you an idea. I'm going to break down my 8 picks that I think you should stick by, but I'm just going to give you some insight on why I like each game or what I think about. Cleveland moneyline minus 480. I don't even touch that. Anything that's over 270 or 250 for me on a moneyline choice isn't really that great for them, because you have to put in so much money to win, or you have to parlay that with like an underdog and hope that it evens itself out. Minus 480, it's like they're, with the biggest spread of the week as well at minus 10, I think. Nope, second biggest or third biggest spread of the week, I should say, because Tampa Bay's favored by 11 and Tennessee's favored by 10.5. The under at 44.5 is a good call. Don't be surprised if it's like a 27-7 game. So I like the under in that game. So I'm going to go with the under in both those games. I'm taking Cleveland minus 10. If you can get them a little bit lower than that, jump on that if you can. Maybe buy a point or two there. But I think 10 points is probably what the score is going to be around. I could see it being a 24-17 game or a 20-10 game. I don't think Detroit's putting up a lot of points. I don't think they just have the capability to do so. And if Jared Goff's out, I don't even know if Jared Goff is a good choice for Detroit as well. Moving on, I like Indy this week. I'm going to take Indy plus 9. The spread right now is Buffalo minus 7.5. So what I'll do in this situation is I'll buy about 1.5 points, because if you're giving me about 7.5 to 9 points with an Indianapolis Colts team that is led by DeForest Buckner and Darius Leonard on defense, and the new rushing leader Jonathan Taylor on offense, I think this is a rematch of that. Well, I know it's a rematch of that AFC wildcard matchup last year. Even in Buffalo, I actually went to a Buffalo-Indianapolis game many years ago back in December. It was the Snow Bowl. It was, you can't see 2 feet in front of you. They had snow blowers brushing out the line so people could see. It was 7-7 going to overtime. And then I think Shady McCoy, who was still back on the team, ran it in for the overtime touchdown and the win. But I like Indy in the situation. Frank Reich and his coaching staff do an excellent job preparing game in, game out. You really look at their schedule this year, and they were up against Seattle and the Rams early on. They were able to go into San Fran in a monsoon and win that game. They beat the Jets. Dominated them a couple Thursdays ago, but then barely beat Jacksonville. So I think it's just like the trajectory of the NFL this year. So I'm going Colts plus 9, Buffalo minus 330 on the money line. Maybe the Bills win, but I don't know if I would touch the money line. The over-under on that game is about 50, and I think that's going to be a very interesting game because it could be high scoring. I really think with Josh Allen and Carson Wentz that even though Buffalo's got the number 1 scoring defense, that could be over 50. I don't know if I'd touch that, to be honest with you. So that's my call on the Indianapolis one. San Fran at Jacksonville. San Fran with a massive Monday night win at home. First win at home all year. A week before they got blown out by Colt McCoy and the Cardinals. Now they go and travel from the West Coast to the East Coast to face Jacksonville. They're 6.5 points favorite, and I like San Fran here. I really do. I think that San Fran is starting to realize that, Kyle Shanahan definitely a bit on the hot seat, but George Kittle's back, and not only is he a big playmaker down the field, which he showed on Monday night, but I don't know if you guys saw, but he absolutely put Von Miller into the dirt. He is great in the blocking game. San Fran runs a lot of run zones, run schemes where they'll run with the tight ends blocking and Kyle Juszczyk behind him. So it's a lot of zone schemes. George Kittle is a huge asset to that team. I think he's really the heartbeat of that team. I think defensively they do have some tendencies, but I watched Jacksonville the last couple weeks. I mean, they struggled, but they somehow beat Buffalo on a 9-score game with no touchdowns. They barely squeaked out a win in London the week before, a couple weeks before that against Miami. And then last week they were in with Indy. Like, they definitely look like they're getting better, but they're just a work in progress. I really do like James Robinson. I think Trevor Lawrence, unlike Mac Jones, in a tough situation. San Fran -6.5. I do like that. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than people expected. But I'm going to jump on San Fran money line -275. That's kind of the most I do on a money line right now, is that -275. It's not in that 300 range, which I won't touch. It's that 250 to 275 range. I think if I'm looking at this game, I'm thinking there is a chance that Trevor Lawrence could maybe have a breakout game, but I still think San Fran is the more superior team. So I'm going San Fran, either -6.5 or the money line. You'll have to wait and see until I get my 8 picks out of the way. Moving along. Oh, by the way, San Fran 45.5. Don't touch the over/under on that game, because it could literally go one of two ways. It could be a high-scoring game. It could be a very low-scoring game. Not a game that I might watch necessarily on DAZN or on Red Zone, I should say, but it's happening, and if you want to lay that bet there on the under, I would definitely say that. See, the thing with laying the under down is you're watching a game and you're like, I want points. Like, you want to see score touchdowns. So at the same time, you're wondering, like, am I cheering for like field goals here? Do I want teams to get stopped? So there's always a little bit of a choice, but if there's certain amount of, if there's an over under that's really high, then I think that in that situation, 45.5, not that high at all. I think kind of right in the middle of the pack. Moving on, I got the Carolina Panthers, led by, he's back, Cam Newton, -3.5 against his former head coach, Ron Rivera. I love this matchup. I really do. And it's because Christian McCaffrey is my favorite player to watch. I may or may not have him in 2 of my 4 fantasy leagues, but this guy, number 22, runs between the tackles. I mean, he had like 12 or 13 carries for 90 yards and then 10 receptions for 66 yards. So PPR, if you're a fantasy guy, and we'll talk about that in another show, he's your guy. That being said, when you look at what Christian McCaffrey brings to the table, and when you look at with Cam Newton, that leadership, I mean, he led huddles even in that Arizona game. 2 plays, 2 touchdowns. He's getting first starter reps. I think if they even started with PJ Walker, he's proven to show that he's capable of kind of commanding an offense. He won't blow you down the field. And I don't even know what to say about this football team. And by the football team, I mean the Washington football team. Because they go and they just lay egg after egg after egg. And then at home, when they lose their star defensive end, Chase Young, second-year player, former defensive player, rookie player of the year, for the year to a torn ACL, which, I mean, talk about all the torn ACLs that's happened at FedEx Field in Washington. I could literally do a whole list of that. They're still able to beat the defending Super Bowl champions, Tampa Bay, and really, like, control the game. I mean, running the ball, they did an excellent job. The final drive that scored with, like, 30 seconds left to ice it was 10.5 minutes against a Tampa Bay rushing defense. What? Like, I don't know what to say about that, but I really think that the Panthers, if you can get them at -2.5, it's a really good call. If you can get them at if you only get them at -3.5, I'd also lay that down. I think this is a 28-24 kind of game. So I do think Washington does put up points, but I think that Carolina, with their defense, by the way, which if you look at who's on that, with Burns, with Hassan Reddick, with Stephon Gilmore, with Henderson that they got, I mean, they have playmakers on every level of the defensive end, on the defense, I should say. And I really think that Matt Rhule is going to have some game planning with Cam Newton. And if you can just hand the ball to Christian McCaffrey, I don't think there's any defense in the league that's going to stop this guy. I mean, I really don't. So put me down for McCaffrey, 2 touchdowns as well. Don't know what the prop is on that, but I'm going to say that. Over-under on that game is about 43. That's a little low for me. I'm going to take the over on that game. Moving on, I got the Ravens with a bounce back, a long weekend. They lose to Miami. They're favored by 6. They're on the road in Chicago. Tough place to play. Chicago also coming off a bye. Justin Fields looking a little bit better, but I think John Harbaugh, I'm taking the coach in this situation. Matt Nagy, one of the worst coaches in the league in my opinion. I like what John Harbaugh's got to do. I like what he's going to do with his team after a really big embarrassment on national TV on last Thursday night. I think they bounce back. I think Lamar goes off. I'm taking Baltimore -6, and I'll tell you already right now, they're locked in at my 8 picks. Over-under on that game, 45.5. Beggars can't be choosers. Money line -255 for Baltimore. Philly, big win last week in Denver. Their defense looking really good with Fletcher Cox, Darius Slay in the backfield, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith starting to build that repertoire. Build that connection. 2 straight weeks with touchdowns. He had 2 last week, the 1 week in the week before the loss to the Chargers. Philly at home -1.5 against the Saints. I think this game's close, and that's why the spread's so low. The odds makers really know how to kind of put you into a corner, but the Saints defense looked really struggled. But they also had some good moments against Tennessee. They won the week before, but I don't know if I really love Trevor Siemian. I think every time someone has to go play in Philadelphia, there is that like the fans get on you, and it's tough to hear and play calling. I think Simeon's a little bit overwhelmed. I'll take Philly in the 1.5 points there. The money line's actually pretty good, -120. So if you think, hey, they're gonna win like 17-16 on the last second field goal, take the money line -120 just to win. I'm locking that down. Over under on the Philly game is 43.5. Kind of sounds right. But I'm going to go for points here. I think Kamara might be back. It's what I've read. So I'm going to take the over on Philadelphia, 43.5. And then we start getting to some really good games. You got, actually before that, we got one game that's not so good. You got Tennessee -10.5 at home against Houston. All I'm going to say is just bet anything against Houston. Tennessee, they're the AFC champions. Could they be in for a tough trap divisional game? I don't think so. I think their defense has been really good this year, much more surprising. I've never seen a team play so well for a coach before, and that's what they're doing for Mike Vrabel. Talk about like a team that like embodies like their coach's personality. I think that's Tennessee. I think Ryan Tannehill's due for a big game, and Houston's defense is a perfect opportunity just to eat it all up. So I really like what Tennessee has to do at home as well. They're not traveling to Houston. Even without Derrick Henry, you got A.J. Brown. You could put him down for a touchdown. And they've got some other things. AP maybe gets in for a goal line plunge. 10.5. I'm not even worried about the points there. Tennessee money line, don't even think about it. It's -500. Don't even put any money on that. Tennessee, Houston over under 44.5. Take the under. I don't think it's a high scoring game. I think Tennessee's going to be up by like 17, 20 points in like the third quarter, and they're just going to run it. And they're just going to be happy with like an easy 17-point win. And again, Davis Mills, Tyrod Taylor, whoever's throwing the ball for Houston, doesn't really bother me. I'm taking Tennessee. But then we get, as I mentioned, get into the good games. You got Green Bay -2.5. On the road against Minnesota. Really like that opportunity for Aaron Rodgers to bounce back. He got a win with COVID, a week after COVID. Didn't look great, though. I know they lost Aaron Jones, but A.J. Dillon's an absolute workhorse. Minnesota with their biggest win of the year against the Chargers in L.A. Back home, they're starting to play a little bit better. I just don't know if Kirk Cousins really up to beating Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to take the better of the quarterbacks. Give me Green Bay 2.5. Cincinnati at Vegas. Cincinnati on the road after a bye week. I think this offense is just really good. It's just been snake bitten the last little while. So I'm going to go with Jamar Chase, Joey B. I'm going to go with T. Higgins and Joe Mixon against a Vegas team that has just been, talk about turmoil between Gruden, Henry Ruggs, and Arnett. I mean, it's just, I've never seen a season like that for any NFL team. I think there's too many problems there. As much as I like Derek Carr, I think they showed last Sunday against the Chiefs they're just not ready for this anymore. Or this year, at least, they kind of need to hit a reboot, refreshed. So I'm taking Cincy -1. Then a couple 4 o'clock games. Arizona at Seattle. Russell Wilson struggled mightily in Lambeau. It was a tough, cold night. He's going to be back at home with his fans. The 12th man there in Seattle is huge. But I think Kyler Murray's coming back, and I think these games between Arizona and Seattle are insane. So Arizona -2.5. I'm going to take Arizona. I'm taking the better team, even though I really do like Russ. If D-Hop's back as well, I'm going to take it, but I'm going to go with Arizona -2.5. The over-under on that one's not so bad, 49. I mean, it's high, but depending on what the weather's like in Seattle, and I recommend doing a little bit of a weather network channel in Seattle to see what's going on. If the weather's bad, take the under. If it's nice, I'm taking the over. I think there's gonna be a lot of points there. I think Russ is gonna bounce back, but I got Arizona to win. I really do want Seattle. I'm really kind of leaning that way, but my internal gut is saying let's go with Arizona. I'm taking Dallas +4. Right now the line is -2.5. So Kansas City. Big win on the road in Vegas on Sunday night. Takes the division. They got the 4th seed. Mahomes, everyone's feeling great. But I think this is Dallas team that's a little bit destined for destiny. Put the D in destiny. I might be a little bit biased on that, but I think Dallas can manage to run the ball and take the time of possession away from the Kansas City Chiefs. I think their defense is playing much better than Kansas City's. Even though they're on the road, I think Dallas could cover 4 points. Maybe this ends with a Harrison Butker field goal, maybe a Greg Zuerlein who's going to come back from COVID. But I think that Dak Prescott right now is definitely comeback player of the year. But I think there's definite consideration for him to win MVP. This would kind of put another little stamp in his MVP portfolio. Money line on the Dallas game, by the way, is KC minus 142. So it's not that big of a stretch. Arizona was minus 134. Again, those are games where it could go either way. That's why the money line's so close. The over-under in Dallas is 56. That's too many points for me. I'm taking the under. I think it's going to be a lot closer. But we'll hear Tony Romo and Jim Nantz break it all down on Sunday at 4:25 from Arrowhead Stadium. I'm super pumped for that game. Probably the game of the week. The Sunday nighter, the Chargers 5.5 against the Steelers. I think that's too many points for the Chargers. I think they've shown that they're a little too inconsistent. As much as I'll take Justin Herbert to win, the money line minus 245 is okay. I like that number. The over-under on that one's 47. I'm going to take the under on that one, but 5.5 seems like too many points, so I'm going to lean towards Pittsburgh just because I think that their defense keeps them in them. I think Big Ben's going to be back from his COVID stint. If it was Mason Rudolph, I'd say no problem, but there's a reason why it's at 5.5 and not 8.5. It's because Big Ben's expected to play. I think they'll feed Najee Harris. Joey Bosa has COVID, so there's a lot of factors into that game. And then the Monday night game, Tampa Bay 11. I think Tampa Bay needs a bounce back. I know they went to New York against the Giants last year on a Monday night, and they kept it really close with the Giants, or the Giants kept it really close with Tampa Bay. But I think Tampa Bay is like, okay, we crapped the bed against New Orleans. We didn't show up against Washington. We need a statement game. I think Tom Brady has it on Monday night on national TV against a Giants team that is banged up, bruised, even though they're playing tough and they have their win before their bye against the Vegas Raiders. I think Tampa Bay, 11 points. If you can get them down to about 9.5, I would take them on the 10-point mark. But 11 points, I'm still riding with TB12 and that offensive juggernaut that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, with all that being said, by the way, over-under 49.5, take the under on the Tampa Bay Giants game. So, with all that being said, you're thinking, what are Sam's 8 picks of the week? Well, let me get to you in the final 3 minutes of this show. I'm going to go, boom, New England minus 7. Give me Mac Jones. Give me his 7th win. This team is playoff bound. That defense is insane. J.C. Jackson's having a stellar year. Matthew Judon, probably the most underrated pickup of the year. So I'm taking New England minus 7. If you can get them up minus 6.5, just better. But I love New England in this situation on Thursday night, and I think Bill Belichick is going to game plan around covering Kyle Pitts, and who is he going to really throw to? Matt Ryan, Russell Gage, to himself? I do not know. New England minus 7, that's my number 1 pick. Number 2, I'm taking Indy plus 9. As I mentioned earlier, the line on the game is minus 7.5. I'm taking the Colts with a couple points plus 9. As I mentioned, Jonathan Taylor, the rushing champion, he'll be heavily involved. Look for Nyheim Hines to catch some balls out of the backfield. Michael Pittman having a really underrated year on how good he's been. Also, Hard Knocks for Indianapolis Colts come out tonight. So you think that team's going to be juiced up knowing that Hard Knocks is like airing now and it's about them and they're like drive to the playoffs? I think they're pumped. They even might win this game. That's, a little shocker, but I'm going to take them plus 9 to be safe. I like Baltimore minus 6. I'm taking the better coach, Harbaugh, over Matt Nagy. I absolutely hate Matt Nagy's game plan for Justin Fields these last few weeks, and I think that Harbaugh is going to bounce back in a big way and get his team rolling. That defense has given up a lot of big plays lately, but I like Lamar Jackson to put his stamp on this game with a big game from him. Miami, minus 2.5. Joe Flacco is starting for the Jets. I don't even know if I touched that game, by the way. But if I didn't, I'll tell you very quickly, Miami's defense looks great the last few weeks. They faced the Jets. They faced the Ravens. Their defense is starting to get turnovers again. Tua looks good. Jalen Waddle's nice out of the backfield. I like Mike Gesicki down the seam as a tight end option. And Joe Flacco is going to run into a whole lot of hurt against that Miami defense that put a lot of pressure on Lamar Jackson, Baltimore last Thursday. But again, this is the NFL in 2021. Anything's possible, but I'm going to go with Miami. Number 5, I got Cincy minus 1. I love Joey B. Give me Jamar Chase with a touchdown as well. Dallas plus 4. I got the Cowboys. I'm a little bit biased, but I'm going to admit Cowboys plus 4. Keep it close. May even win this game. Probably should win this game to cement Dak Prescott's MVP season that he's having. San Fran money line minus 275, another really good one that I like. I don't know if I love him at 6.5, but I do definitely love him to win. And last but not least, I'm taking Green Bay and Minnesota, the over 49. Give me points with Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, both of them for over 100 yards and a touchdown. And those are your 8 picks of the week. I'm going to sign off with my first show of the year, my first show for 12 Ounce Sports. I hope you enjoyed all the content, and I look forward to talking to you guys more later on in the year. And